And so if a community decides to opt out, you want it to go directly to a vote of the people at that point, and you don't, Jenny, is that correct?
Actually, I want it to go to a vote of the people if the community decides to refer it to a vote. And
to get enough signatures.
Yes, to get enough signatures. And the way this actually, the advocates, I wish the advocates would look at this really closely, because if you have a community that voted against marijuana, and yet maybe just the city council needs some education, maybe they need some more time to figure out their time, place, and manner, like the communities did under the moratorium, then it's really not in the advocates' interest to have it on the ballot and seal into stone that ban. Whereas if the council bans it and then a year later they've decided that they really can make it work with their time, place, and manner, and their citizens want it, they have citizens who want medical marijuana, then they can easily reverse it. So it's just a genuine disagreement on how to accomplish the goals that we're all trying to accomplish. We are all trying to accomplish the goal where people who, with a medical marijuana card, can get access to marijuana for medicinal purposes.
What is it you don't like about that?
Well, and I see it somewhat differently, because the way I see it under Measure 91, which voters in Oregon just passed in November, and which legalizes adult use of marijuana, there's a very specific opt-out procedure identified, which is if a community wants to opt out, then community members can gather signatures and put it on the ballot, and through a vote of the people, the community can opt out, which is how Oregon did it with alcohol prohibition. If we allow city councilors and county commissioners to opt out unilaterally and then say to voters, but if you don't like the decision we've made, you're welcome to go gather signatures and try to put it on the ballot and then try to overturn the decision, then two things happen. One, it becomes harder for a chemotherapy or glaucoma patient to get medical marijuana than it is for someone who just wants to recreate and buy something through the rec system. And also, I think that there are a lot of people in our community who would say, wait, we just did that. We just did circulate a lot of petitions to gather signatures and get on the ballot Measure 91, and then we voted to legalize marijuana. Why is it right to put the burden of proof on the voters of the community again to say again?
What do you think about that, Ginny?
From a practice, let me go back a step. Both Representative Leininger and I voted to preempt communities from banning marijuana. It was an absolute preemption. And then when I presented this to my Senate colleagues, there were only about 13 or 14 votes in the entire Senate for a proposal that did not allow some kind of local control. And so it was that political reality that caused this issue to rise up at the end. And with the proposal to allow cities and counties to ban it, but allow a reduced threshold of signatures to get it on the ballot, the lowest available, 4%, I'm able to gather the votes in the Senate to pass the far more important parts of this bill. We are in a political process. You can argue philosophy all day long and all night long, but at the end of the day, if you want to get something through, you have to have the votes. You have to have a constitutional majority.
Because the key is here, obviously, the folks at home are trusted in you guys to come up to implement the recreational marijuana. You're at this impasse now because medical marijuana got stuck in there.
Yeah.
Has anything been done as far as recreational marijuana?
Well, in fact, there has. We have a bill that is in draft. I actually have a draft of it in my bag right now, and on Monday we're going to do an informational hearing on the elements of our Measure 91 bill. And in fact, the folks on the committee who are really concerned about making sure we follow the will of the voters to not change the method for opting out of marijuana, our proposal is, hey, let's just set aside, we've reached a little bit of a stumbling block on medical, but you know what, I bet we can work through that. Why don't we just set it over here for right now, and let's work on this other piece of the people's business, the bill for Measure 91, and it's got exciting elements about which we'll probably have great conversations, and I'd prefer to have us move toward that before a separate committee of the Senate is formed and peels off and pushes through their version and leaves the House members of the committee kind of.
Well, what about that separate committee that Peter Courtney's talking about when it comes to medical marijuana? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it's an unfortunate choice. I think we've been doing great work together as a committee, and I think we'll continue to do great work together as a committee. Our proposal had been, you know, we can work this out. Let's set it aside for a little while and work on this other good work together, and we will circle back. And unfortunately, it seems like the Senate members decided that they needed to split off and form their own committee and move that through concurrently. But the upshot is perhaps just about the same. It will move through the Senate. It will come to the House. It's got a $10 million fiscal on it, and so it will probably move to our Ways and Means Committee, where it may spend a little time while we seek to understand the financial elements. So in effect, it's going to be tabled for a few weeks anyway. So we'll have a chance to come back and have a conversation. But I think it does hurt relationships.
It probably, I would imagine it does down there. Ginny, what do you think? What happens to the Joint Committee at this point then?
Oh, the Joint Committee will be fine. It has not been disbanded. The operative word here is move. We are running out of time. And to put this, we have an amazing bipartisan agreement in the Senate that nobody anticipated. It has not been divisive across party lines, and yet there are so many provisions in this bill that give everyone heartburn, including me. We have a bipartisan agreement now. We do not want to let that go. We want to recognize it, let the public see that we're agreeing on that, and then keep it moving, keep it moving. We have to put the medical part behind us before we can get to a real discussion on recreational.
Because obviously July 1st is a big day, implementation of recreational marijuana here in the state of Oregon. Is anything you guys are doing down there now have any impact on that? Will that delay that day? Any impact on that day?
We have not really started our discussion of the Measure 91 piece yet, the July deadline or anything else. No one is openly talking about changing the July 1 deadline. We're trying to figure out a way to perhaps get some legal marijuana into the system so people can legally buy it on, close to that.
So far it's all been just medical, the discussion at this point.
Well, actually, though, there's been a lot of committee work done developing elements of a Measure 91 bill. So there is the draft that we're going to be introducing for discussion on Monday has pieces about dealing with reclassification of some marijuana crimes, point of taxation, which is an issue that Senator Burdick has been really interested in, making sure that the Oregon Liquor Control Commission has the authority it needs to do rulemaking and enforcement of adult use marijuana shops, some kinds of licensing, how you legally get plant seeds and starts when you want to start growing your own, as a person may, coming up here very soon. So it's got a lot of exciting elements we're eager to discuss with the group.
There's been some talk about a delivery process for some of these cities that ban dispensaries. Is that a possibility? Do you guys see that happening, Ginny?
Oh, that's a very real possibility. In fact, a lot of it is, I think, authorized under current law. It's very important that people with medical needs get access to marijuana, but people have to keep in mind it's only been just in the last couple of years that dispensaries even existed. And for many years before that, the product was delivered to patients, and those channels still exist. It's unfortunate when they don't have the added convenience of a dispensary, but there are other ways of delivering medical marijuana.
But I would also say that, for the medical patients whose needs are often quite different from the needs of recreational patients, they need much higher intensity products. They may not be able to smoke the product. They may have to take it through a tincture or an oil or something. It's important for them to have access to places where they can buy carefully processed product that is maybe reduced and distilled down into an extreme intensity, and those facilities need to be licensed and available for people to get product from. So if we do have the opt-out, it won't be possible for people to get in their communities the kinds of medical product that they may be relying on, either from processor or from a dispensary, because those things will not be allowed. And I will say that in terms of the will of the voters, while people getting access to medicine is extremely important, I think that we're seeing a strong reaction within our community to the need to adhere to the will of the voters. We've seen lots of emails coming in, but I've seen editorials in the Oregonian, the Eugene Register-Guardian, as recently as this afternoon, the Huffington Post covered concern about the fact that in our community, some people are choosing to dial back.
I did read that as well. Do you think July 1st will be up and running as far as recreational marijuana?
No, we actually won't, even under Measure 91. On July 1st, it will simply be completely legal to possess it.
And still much more to go, I would
Much more
imagine.
to go.